Tom Hitchcock here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. There's a big smile. You're looking very happy. What's happening in your world?
I just am happy to be talking to you today in general. And also, we're getting ready for kind of our mainnet launch. We've got a big push heading towards mainnet in the next few months. So I'm getting kind of excited about the capabilities we're bringing to our network at the moment as well, which is Lilypad. So, there's a couple of things going well, and, you've got to ride that wave.
That's it. That's it. So, well, that's a good enough for a reason for a smile. I'm going to still go with you. Just happy to be here. That's
Yeah, absolutely. That was it.
that's it. Whereabouts you based in the world, Alison?
I'm actually in Australia, so I live in Melbourne in Australia. It's kind of overcast today, even though it's summer. So, but it's been about 30 degrees, or I don't even know what that is for Americans, maybe over 90 for the last week. So it's been lovely here.
Lovely. Yeah, I had a few interviews in Melbourne, and the sun's been shining. And I think one person got a bit defensive when I brought up that made for a nice change, and then we got into this major city debate.
I mean, it's easy. It's easy to do. I like to joke. The English really did the wrong thing. They sent all the convicts over to Australia, and who's laughing now?
That's it. That's it. So anyway, so tell us a bit about yourself, Alison. But what is it that you do, and what you
Yeah,
want to share?
so sure. So currently, I'm the CEO and founder of the Lilypad Network, which is looking to democratize access to hardware and provide this kind of decentralized platform for running AI. So that means doing things like running bias resistant models on our network, or providing monetization options and IP rights for model creators. And this is something me and my co-founder are actually deeply passionate about. But before I go into that diatribe, because I definitely will end up in a rabbit hole, I'll keep going on the original question. So I'm building this network. Previously to that, I was working at Protocol Labs, which is quite well known in the space for its R&D work around IPFS and Filecoin, and basically trying to build a decentralized version of, I would say, some of the cloud companies, and provide kind of these new economic incentive models, as well as, a better way to do things, I think, and some of it was quite elegant. So I came out of that ecosystem. And if we go back a long time, I actually owned a cafe in my 20s. So I like to joke that I did this the wrong way around. You're supposed to have a startup and then you retire to a cafe, but I had the cafe first in my 20s, and then I went and retrained. I did mechatronics engineering and computer science at university here in Australia. And since then, I've been involved in a lot of entrepreneurial activities. I had a startup when I was still at uni and doing my thesis. I don't know what I was thinking, but that was a great foundation. And then I moved into the corporate world for a while, worked for Accenture, worked for IBM, and worked on a really cool R&D project at the University of Sydney Physics Lab with the Air Force here, and then made it into blockchain. Just got I really went down the rabbit hole. One of the things I love about blockchain is just the communities, and just that I think we're kind of fighting the good fight. I know that sounds a bit trite, but I really feel like a lot of what we're doing is so innovative, and if only 5% of that makes it, I think it will have a major impact on where we go in the world, and keeping things, infrastructure open, and therefore kind of some of our human rights these days open as well. Sorry, that was a long intro, but yeah, good to meet everyone.
Yeah, that's it. No, I love it. So we started off with the cafe,
Yep.
and then there's a sudden shift into the world of innovation and technology,
Yep.
which is fascinating. In layman's terms,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So for those that are not tech savvy, what is
Mm-hmm.
it you're working on right now?
So I like to equate Lilypad to kind of the Shopify of AI. It gives kind of data scientists, model creators a platform to build their own business from. It gives you monetization like Shopify kind of does. It's not a perfect analogy, but I think that's probably, in layman terms, the pretty close analogy.
Okay, love it. And you were tempted by 2 rabbit holes. Which one do you want to go for first?
Oh, was I? I mean, me and my rabbit holes. I'm known as Alice in Wonderland on Discord, so it's appropriate. And I did fall down the blockchain rabbit hole as well. So the first rabbit hole, I think I was talking about the value of providing, monetization of models while still giving IP rights to creators. That one specifically, me and my co-founder, Stanley Bishop, who is in LA, has been in the decentralized science and bio-ML space for a long time now. He's one of the OGs, I think, actually, of that space, or, one of the original people in that for people that are non-crypto. And he and I are just like very passionate about being able to provide new economic incentives for how we do things like rare science research, or how we provide new scientific discoveries and breakthroughs and share that information. So a lot of the time what happens, for example, is if you're a researcher and you've spent, say, many of years of your life becoming, this expert in some genomic field, genetics field, or bio-ML field, and then all of a sudden you're also kind of becoming an expert in data science and being able to make AI models, which is kind of like 2 niches coming into one. You've got a lot of skills there that you've built up over time. Now, here's your choices. You can either go and work for someone that's going to want to make your models proprietary and get paid for that, or you can continue being a researcher and open source those models and get nothing for them. Now, a lot of people, which is, why I think there's, a bright future for the world at all, a lot of these researchers choose the open source way still. They still want to provide public good to the world where they can. There's a lot of restrictions around that if they're working for academia or another field. But where they can, I'm seeing a lot of people looking to open source those models. Now, to me, why shouldn't they be getting value back from that? Why shouldn't they be able to be paid for some of those models, or to have some sort of revenue from those, so they continue to provide these public models to the world? And it's driving things like breakthroughs in rare disease. It's driving things. There's so many cool things that are happening now. It's wild. There's like an AI-driven science revolution happening right now. And so that's probably the first one rabbit hole that I'm very excited about. I think we can provide this kind of balance between having an open source model and being able to provide economic incentives for the original creator in perpetuity as well. And that's what excites me about the cross between AI and crypto here a little bit as well. And I don't know what the second rabbit hole is, so maybe I'll leave it at that for now. I've forgotten.
So I like it. So it sounds like your business and aspirations have quite a strong moral compass.
Absolutely.
Which is nice, especially when people, I think, I can't recall the last podcast where AI didn't come up in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sort of equal measures of cynicism and excitement about where it's going. Okay. But people lead on the cynicism. So if I'm being cynical, I reckon that's probably edging it out a little bit. People are a little bit concerned about jobs it's taken away, interpersonal skills might be taken away, and so forth. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, really big questions. Where to start? I think there's quite a few points in that. The first kind of funny point, not funny, but first point I'm going to make is something like, I wrote a song the other day, and I did it with AI. I typed in what I wanted to hear. I refined it. I did it in an LLM, like I did it in ChatGPT. And then I went and found something that would put music to that and lyrics to that. And then I shared it. And I went, look at this song I made, right? I still felt ownership of that whole process. I still felt like I was the creator. I felt like, I took this from my world, from, you know, the unique things happening in my world that only I could tie together. That's what's, you know, beautiful about humans. We all have like these experiences, and we're the only ones that really can put them together in the way that we do, each individually. And I got AI to help me be creative with that process and put together this song. Now, does that put creators out of work? I'm not sure it does. And I've always thought, and I'm sure, you know, some people are definitely going to disagree with me, but I've always been of the belief that technology is a tool and you use it to enhance yourself. I actually really love Reid Hoffman, who was founder of LinkedIn, and he's a billionaire and a master of like startups. One of the things I recently heard him say was, it's not artificial intelligence, it's like augmented intelligence. This gives humans kind of this augmented way of doing things. The second point is, and that's not really like, that was kind of a funny one, but I still feel ownership of that. I still feel like a creator. I still feel like I can share that and make money on it. I think that's the first point. The second point for me is, we've heard this before. You know, I did a mechatronics engineering degree 10 years ago now. And at the time it was like, robots are going to take our jobs. There's not going to be any jobs left. What are we going to do? And there's just been new economies spring up instead, to be honest. So, and same with, I think, the internet, there was probably the same sort of fear around that. There was the same sort of fear around the printing press, the same sort of fear around many big changes. I think what is the most concerning to people, or potentially the most concerning to people, is just that, you know, I was born in the early 80s. So, you know, I know I don't look at, no, just kidding. And I have seen this massive shift. So I didn't have a phone when I was a kid. I've got a picture of me at like 8 years old with a really old IBM, doing DIR/W on it or something, this computer. And then, you know, I didn't have a phone until, you know, my late teens or even my early 20s potentially. And then even remember at uni, still needing to go to the library to research things, not necessarily like doing that on the internet, having to write essays myself. And now look where we are. Like, I could write that essay on an LLM in half an hour now, right? Or whatever it is. I don't have to remember any of my friends' phone numbers. I can text them that I'm not turning up, which, you know, is not a good thing. But I couldn't at the time. You had to turn up, right? But, you know, I think one of the things that's worrying people is just there's this exponential rate of change. And I think that's something that people struggle to keep up with. And that's reasonable, right? I do think, though, that as a society, like, we're resilient. Humans are incredibly resilient. And I've actually got a lot of hope that the fact that even if AI does take our jobs, and I'm doing inverted quotes there, I think there'll be new economies rise up. And I also think we'll figure out as a society how to collaborate better, how to cooperate better, how to live better lives. Like, the idea of technology tools was always that we should be able to be central humans, be creative, be productive, raise our families, whatever it is, you know, without the hassles of needing to be completely invested in, and there was a great article about this, like in the early 2000s, I think, bullshit jobs. Sorry for the French. And, you know, I really think AI is probably doing some of that at the moment, and that's scary to people, but I think a net positive in the end. And, you know, we're a complex society now. Sorry, I'm really down this rabbit hole now, so I'm just going to keep going. We're a really complex society now, and we need these tools to help us solve the really complex problems we have. Climate change isn't going to get solved without, you know, an extra tool to be able to do that. These rare diseases, like, that we're solving because of AI and because of the ability to curate massive amounts of data and to compute that data, that's amazing, right? We're going to be able to live forever if we want to, potentially, because we have breakthroughs due to these tools. Of course, there's always going to be problems, but we're humans and we always solve problems.
Okay. I do like that. I think you probably got a point as the rate of change, because I think that things are quite snowballing. And I think into your own story, which many people, including myself, can relate to
Mm.
is circumstances we had when we were young are polar opposite to where we are now. And that's a very, very, very short space of time,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it's speeding up.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think which also scares people is the lack of control.
Hmm.
And what I'm talking about there is the humanist elements of AI. So if
Hmm.
you combine the AI and the mechatronics, the
Mm.
robots that you were talking about
Mm.
earlier, I've seen some of these that are so smart now, and they admit to having feelings. They admit to be able to think in themselves and what have you. Okay,
Mm.
um, I know it's questionable. Okay, so again, we look for a lens of cynicism. Um, but they're still early stage, but they're still very advanced,
Mm. Yeah.
and they're, as you said, they're learning.
Hmm.
You know,
And people are focused on different parts of that system too. People are focused on specifically sentiment or sentience of some things, or emotional capacity of some things, whereas LLMs are a different story to that. But yeah, sorry, I'll let you continue.
yeah. I was just curious as to what you're thinking about, what your thoughts are on people's fear of
Mm.
uh, sort of, how can I say, them replacing us
Mm.
entirely in the sense of I'm just trying to get my words out. So it isn't about the jobs, it isn't about the specifics like that. It's about them becoming almost more human than us, being superior to us.
Mm. So like a Black Mirror scenario,
Yes.
probably where robots are the superior species that we've created. Um, yeah, look, I haven't done a lot of deep thinking into this scenario, and I'm not sure why. I think my major thing is I don't feel like we're that close to a scenario like that at the moment. Um, and I think the way that we go isn't that robots replace us, but we end up and I'll be frank here, this is something that internally I go, I don't know if I want this, but I think it's what ends up happening. Um, is that we start augmenting ourselves to be the robots rather than the robots taking over. That would be my bet on how this plays out. Like the first thing will be, oh, well, we're helping people walk again by replacing this, or we're replacing a heart, or we're solving a genetics problem, or we're augmenting our intelligence with a chip so that we can do X, Y, and Z. I think slowly that's probably more likely to be the case than we build a whole robot that is sentient and feels and, replaces us. Yeah, I'm not sure that's a good answer, but that would probably be the answer I'd give right now.
Yes, that's no, it is a good answer. It's another variable, another option for where things could potentially go. And it's interesting to hear that also concerns you.
Some of it does. Some of it
It's not
does.
ideal.
I think, like you said, I grew up, in the 80s and I've seen this massive rate of change. And that's like a future that I do think will happen. Um, but something about me goes, do I want things in my body? But then if I get to that decision and you kind of like I'm so, maybe this is a bad analogy, but I've got a Great Dane and I bought her this year and I brought her home. She's a tiny little puppy. And then over the next 6 months, she turned into a human sized dog. And it was just the rate of growth was insane. It was just like every time I turned around, she'd grown another foot, I swear. But now she's just turned one. Tomorrow, actually, is her birthday. She's just turned one, and the rate of change of growth has slowed. So I'm not seeing it as much. And I do wonder if that's exactly what happens here as well. Like I kind of get used to the idea of that happening. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sick and this could solve it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, we'll timestamp this, and this will be
Mm.
known as the Great Dane theory.
I love
Yeah,
that.
it's coined by Alice in Wonderland.
The Great Day Theory.
I saw her walking past her. The Great Danes are lovely dogs.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
so
I
beautiful. It's
remember back in
so
my youth, I had to create a sales pitch for a pet insurance company in the
Oh,
UK
really?
many, many, many years ago. and the only dog that was in the underwriting that had a different terms of business, if you like, was the
Yeah.
Great Dane, because if
Really?
it got run over, it did more damage to the car than it did to itself.
Oh,
So
come
that's
on.
a reverse. That's a reverse.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, okay, all right. And what about you here and now? So we've got. I believe you're jetting off tomorrow. Are you not?
I am, yeah. I'm heading off to LA and San Francisco, going to meet some potential investors in the company. And we do have private investors, but we also will be doing a public investment round as well. So we're looking to launch over the next 3 months here to a kind of production ready. We call it mainnet, but we're not a chain, so it's not quite mainnet, but we will deploy on a chain and be available as production ready paid service then as well.
Okay, exciting. It's an interesting time to be going to LA, hey?
Yeah. I'm so looking forward to it. The last time I was in LA was in 2017, I think, and I loved it. Like, I had a great time. So met a couple of celebrities, went to climb up to the Hollywood sign, but didn't realize it's like a 4-hour trek or something. So we got lost but met some friends on the way, and then had some authentic Mexican at the bottom of the hill that someone had brought. So it was a good day. Didn't see the side though.
There we are. Okay, all right. And just on your take, with where your business is at and what you're offering, where do you foresee things being in 5-10 years time?
Yeah, look, that's a really hard one to answer with the kind of exponential rate of change that we talked about already. But at the moment, in terms of our business, what we're aiming to do is, and I think this is the third kind of rabbit hole or point of concern that people had, going back to that question a little bit, is that who owns the ethics on these things? Who owns the what's right and what's wrong for these AI models to be doing? Who gets to decide that? And currently, we're looking at trajectories. The people deciding that are the companies that already have a stranglehold over data or compute resources or the infrastructures to be able to build AI. And yes, we're talking about all the big corporations that are in this race, right? I think what's interesting is we're seeing Mark Zuckerberg, who was like universally hated by crypto a couple of years ago for this whole meta change, all of a sudden become an accidental hero to the AI world by wanting to have open source models and wanting to at least open source the weights for those models and provide them as a public good and a public service. And we're seeing other people join that fight too. And in terms of ethics, so what's happening with some of these bigger companies, they're looking to capture regulation so that they're the only ones that can decide on the guardrails of these machines as well, which really is a way of just saying, we're going to be the ones that own these models and own the value accrued from them. We're not going to share it. So I think it's really important right now to have systems like ours that are open source and enable people to get value from the models they create firstly, but also that remain verifiably open. So our infrastructure is decentralized. The compute on our network is decentralized. I'm not going to tell one of those decentralized nodes what they can and cannot run. So I imagine what happens over time is you form communities, and I think this is something that you heard of the social platform Blue Sky. I think this is something they do really well. Just a shout out to them and their awesome female CEO as well. But I think this is something they do well. These communities decide what is and isn't ethical for them. And I think more and more that's important. I also think it's really important for everyone to have a stake in what we think AI should do, right? We should be able to decide as a community what we do and don't like. And look, I understand that that's probably above some people. Like, if I go and ask my mum, she would have no idea, right? She's like, what are you talking about? But I do think there is more and more people able to read and look at these things, and hey, we can use AI to look at them even, right? And explain them to us. and then we get to decide as a community where we want them to go and where we don't want them to go, rather than this being arbitrarily decided by big corporations with vested interests, quite frankly. So that's another important reason I think we need decentralized infrastructure here, and that's something that we're really aiming to build out for people as an alternative to that. And I think it becomes more and more important. And it's not just in crypto, it's not just us looking at that. If you look at some of the people that have left OpenAI, for example, recently, their CTO, to do their own things, or the people that are leaving for platforms that are more open, like Anthropic, I think a lot of the top talent that understands the problems in AI or the potential risks of AI way better than I do are also traveling this route. And I think that's really encouraging as well.
Okay, so listening to that, I took a bit of a step back whilst listening to you there, and it seems like there's a bit of a paradox here, because what I think I'm seeing there is there's ideals to society that are lived through AI.
Mm,
Okay, so
absolutely.
we can't control, whether we live in a genuine democracy or not in each different country, that with its sovereignty, behaviour, culture, for all its rights and wrongs. There's a subculture, there's a sub community, there's a sub society.
Absolutely.
Live through different routes and make some change there. Hey guys, hey politicians, this is how it should be.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, just taking it down to a simple level as well. Most of this innovation has come out of Silicon Valley, for example, and that's obviously you're not American, I'm not American, but our cultures are fairly similar. We're all kind of in this Western culture, so they're not too far off. But even for me, I sometimes think you're getting AIs that are going to be used across everything that are biased by that culture, really. Like, where are the AI? Obviously, China has their own as well, but where are the AIs from other parts of the world, or where are the AIs that are training on different data sets that aren't just kind of these American cultures? And I think that's also a big thing, and that came out as a bit of a problem when image recognition for faces first came out as well. Remember the kind of whole controversy around not being able to recognize black faces. I think this is a similar thing. If all our models that we are going to be pervasive in everything we do are from Silicon Valley, I think that's a big problem as well.
Yes, I remember the Nikon camera tragedy.
Oh,
Did you remember that one or not?
no, what was that?
That's I actually don't want to say on here myself.
We can cut
If
it
you
out.
knew it, you knew it. Maybe Google it.
Okay.
What was interesting with their data set, it came from it's backwards. It should be something that that should easily have been omitted, but the data set is really important. We've noticed that with the psychometric data, which is now being aged out, is again all based on the states and historical data. So if you're doing some sort of psychometric director level, you're doing it against someone from the 1980s in the States, and you've got different cultures, different time zones, and it's not accurate now. It's evolved a lot more. It's on the big fives here and now.
Yeah, exactly. You've nailed it. It's kind of a similar thing there. I also think what's interesting is, and I'm doing it as well, right? I used AI the other day, or I use AI quite extensively for work and for my life now. I love it, right? It's a really great productivity helper. And it knows me now, though, right? It's training on all my data. So now, who owns that data? I think that's something that we're going to have to consider more and more over time. Sure, they say they're washing it and it's only being used for X, Y, and Z, but who really knows? It's a black box.
Back to the Black Mirror again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's us on time now. I do hope that when this gets publicised, that you stick your link to your song that you created.
Oh no, man! It's so
embarrassing. I want to hear it. What's the song called?
I actually, it's a little bit of a personal song. I had a bit of heartbreak recently, so I, processed it by writing a song with AI. So I probably won't link that song.
Right, well, the song number 2 then when you cheered up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do one Yeah, I'll do a funner one on LA, maybe.
There we are, done. We'll hold you to that. It's all recorded, don't forget. So,
Amazing.
and outside of that, if someone wants to make contact with you for your services, ask you questions, how should they reach out to you?
Yeah, either LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, but LinkedIn, I'm Ali Haire, ALLY, Haire, HAIRE. You can find me there and connect with me, or I'm also well known on Twitter as @DeveloperAli, so developer ALLY, or developer ally, which is kind of cool. And my inbox is open there, so you can also connect with me there. I'm a bit slower to respond there, though, if you do that way.
All good. Listen, thank you very much for your time. The conversation has been fantastic.
It was great to meet you, Tom. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.